Welcome to Talking Education from the Varkey Foundation. By entering conversation like this, you are helping to raise teachers' voices and give every child a quality education. Please watch, click subscribe, and start Talking Education. Esports is a general term used to describe video game competitions. We have previously unpicked if esports have a place in education, and we will link to that debate below. Now, we are going to delve a little deeper. Tonight, we want to provide both students and teachers advice on bringing esports into their schools, overcoming hurdles they may be facing, and keeping their clubs healthy and diverse. Hello and welcome. I'm Agustín Porres. I'm the Regional Director for the Varkey Foundation. I'm very happy to be with all of you today. Let me first of all introduce the panel that is going to be with us in Talking Education today. So we have, and I will ask them to introduce themselves. We have Miss Harvey, a game player. Welcome.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, hi. My name is Stephanie Harvey. I was a pro gamer for about 17 years. I specialized in Counter-Strike, but now I'm also an advocate for women in gaming and just in general in diversity. And I'm currently CounterLogic Gaming, CLG's Director of eSports, Franchise Development, and Outreach. So I do a lot of outreach over here in America for CounterLogic Gaming.
Perfect. Welcome. We welcome also our senior lecturer on esports, Ram Singh.
Hi there. Hi all. I am, yes, of course, I'm Ram Singh. I've been in esports for over 20 years. I was with Team Dignitors for 10 years before they changed to Dignitors, as you now know. And yeah, been in the scene, seen where it's come from. And now I am, of course, the senior lecturer for esports at the University of Chichester.
Welcome again. We have with us also Carlo Mazzone, from a teacher that is in our top 50 for the Global Teacher Prize. So welcome, Carlo.
Thank you. I'm Carlo Mazzone. I'm a teacher from Italy. I teach computer science in a high school in the south part of Italy. And I'm here to bring my contribution, if I can, about the sports and the world of teaching.
Perfect. And we also have with us Emily Brazil, from a college eSport player, part of the British competition. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a year 13 student from Farnborough. I participated in the British eSports Championships since the beginning of last year. And I also helped run our eSports teams since September 2019.
Perfect. Welcome all. I'm very happy to be moderating this panel. It's incredible the variety and the diversity we have with us today, from the classroom, from Carlo, from the esports players, and the thing in the university, both our player Emily, who will be giving us a different perspective. And so as I can imagine, there is many people in the audience today with us that is not an expert on the topic, myself to start. So I will ask Ram, we are talking about something that is from a new generation, and maybe other people from former generations are not involved or not aware of what esports is. So Ram, if you can, we were having this conversation before, but if you can give us a broad understanding of what are we talking about when we talk about esports.
Esports in a short term really is just competitive computer games. It's playing head to head against each other in 1v1 or in team based, and and it's been going on for many years. Not as much as it was back then. When I started, it was very niche. It was very unpopular. If you ever said the word video games, it was like the sort of cringe sort of worthy. But nowadays, it's getting more accepted to where we are now. So yeah, in hindsight, it is just basically you take the sport, say like a football or something, take that out, put the computer game in. It's basically that in an instant. So yeah, esports is competitive computer games at its best.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and we have to explain today for the audience that is not aware of esports what is not as well. And you mentioned a few things. You say like it's human playing to human, and it's a human competition, and maybe we are not aware of that. And there is a real and active competition. I was talking with another expert early today, and he told me right now when we were having this conversation, there was a match going on esports, and there were 77,000 people watching that match. So we are talking about an audience that is huge, and there is a full war around esports. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have today, because we want to link esports into the education area and specifically into schools, teachers, and students. So what can we say to schools about esports? I can imagine, and I have a question for all of you, that now with the pandemic and with the lockdown in schools, in clubs all over the world, esports have flourished and have it's another era for esports. What will you say about the last month and what happened with esports in the last month or so in from your sides? Maybe Miss Harvey, you want to start?
Yeah, I actually think it's very interesting because in a way, although like a lot of tournaments were canceled, especially in the arenas and whatnot, in a way, esports was mostly unaffected because most of our competition can be done online, has been done online in the past. And it's just everyone is now at home and we're consuming a lot of streaming, a lot of gaming. And I think that esports at the moment is kind of striving to kind of be recognized also by the mainstream that, hey, maybe it's not that weird of a practice if pretty much we're stuck at home. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Great. What would you, Emily, say? What did you see in the past month or so about esports?
Personally, I think that it's become quite popular because before we could all go outside, but now obviously there's lockdown and all of that. I feel like if there's anything that you can do at home is playing games, and then you can also communicate with friends. And I think it's just generally become quite popular since lockdown has started.
Let me ask a different question. This is something quite new. For me, it's completely new, but not for you. You have been here for 20, 15 years. But of course, it's not something that was embedded into the school systems and into the life of a school. You get in from different ways. Let me ask Ram, Carlo, or Stephanie, will your high school life be different if you have esports at that time embedded into a school life?
To be fair, like if I compare from what I did years ago back in high school, it will be different. Like as I said previously in my introduction, and well, for esports, competitive computer game, it's a niche. It's sometimes when you speak to other people about it, they sort of cringe, going, "Oh, you play this? You play computer games? Is that all you do?" I'm sure many of us have had that who are computer gamers, you know, trying to talk to friends about them. But nowadays, I think it's much more accepted. It's much more accessible as well, coming into it, because again, there's not a lot of, I guess there are not a lot of teenagers also that don't want to do physical sports. So, but they do want to represent their school in some way. And I believe, you know, now is the perfect time with esports because, again, you're representing not just yourselves, you're representing your schools in a different way, and in a way where this generation is growing up digitally, because now, of course, with smartphones and tablets and all that sort of thing, this is the way we're going, and this is perfect for those sort of people.
Good.
If I can make a consideration, it's hard to link school and players and games. Until this moment, game player was considered a waste of time. So until this moment was very, very difficult. But I think that for pandemic problems, we have a change of vision because, for example, the attitude, the habit of the students and young people to stay hours in front of their videos and to play has helped them a lot to stay closed in this moment in their houses. So I think there can be a change in the vision for the school too. Anyway, you have to consider that I think as a teacher that it's hard to think that gaming could be a subject in school. I think we can use, for example, in the ICT, the passion of the gamers to help them to understand how to build and project and develop with software, with languages of the ICT, new games. I think at gamification in the school, you can think as Scratch for a basic example, or for example, Unity for creating more powerful games.
Yeah, let me ask you there, Carlo. What brings you into this world? You were a teacher. What happened to you that you get involved into the esports?
For the sport, because I think that you have to passionate your students. If you have to make them to understand that studying could be funny. To do this, you have to try to find something that can be of appeal, that can passionate them. So in my lessons and my projects during teaching, I always ask them to create video games using a programming language that I teach them. In this particular moment, one of these project has begun a real company, a startup. That its name is eSports Linker. That is a social network that my students are building with their passion and with their attitude to write code for in different languages to build the platform, web platform. And our aim is to I read from our annual report of the eSports Linker. Our mission is promote the growth of the sport market thanks to interconnection between gamers and teams, and our mission no longer just a pastime or hobby, but a real profession. eSports Linker is a social platform for amateur games with the aim of creating economic opportunities and making their passion a profession. Anyway, this is a project, but it's hard to imagine that all this could be a normal subject.
Yeah. Well, it's good what you're saying, and I'm taking notes because you were mentioning the how you transfer that passion, or how you motivate and bring that passion into your student. I think that's critical in education, and there are the dots that we have to put together or to connect. And in some ways, you talk about teams. That is something that I want to bring later on the conversation, as well as this is not only for players. There are many other perspectives around esports that we have to consider and that the life of the school can consider. But let's wait until we get there. Let us go to Emily. Emily, you got involved in esports during your high school life. What moved you there? Why you get involved?
Well, initially, I wasn't actually going to join the esports teams. It had been set up literally the year that I had joined college, and I wasn't really planning on joining any extracurricular activities. So I liked sport quite a lot when I was in secondary school, but I didn't think I was at a level where I could play it on a college team. So a lot of my friends kind of egged me on to join an eSports team because I liked playing games in my free time. So in January last year, I think, I went along to one of the sessions that they held after school and started playing from that. It was quite intimidating at first, but after the first time that I played with my team, I've forgotten what I was going to say. It was.
I like this.
It's just really welcoming.
You are sharing, and thank you very much. You are sharing that you were intimidated at the beginning. And I think it's also good to talk about that, about some barriers that could be here that we need to take down. And we are promoting this is something that is growing a lot. So it's good to hear that you are a very successful person inside the esports, but you were intimidated at the beginning. So we have to work on that as well. Let me ask, we will get back to Emily, but let me ask Stephanie, there may be students willing to have more esports in their schools, but they are not, maybe for their teachers it's not something important, or as Carlo was saying, there are some barriers. Also, like what Emily was sharing. What will be your advice for students trying to get this as a topic into the school?
Well, okay, so from my experience, I think that it's making the first step that's really intimidating. So my advice is really to just get involved and figure out if that's what you like and want to do. Because every time that I was scared to do something in gaming, people welcomed me with open arms and taught me how to to play the games, how to get better, play more competitively, and just to have the possibility to do that at school, for me, it's crazy because it was not even something that I could have considered back then. So I had to struggle between juggling with my studies, working, as well as esports. But now you have clubs and it's possible to do it at school. Jump on it, embrace it, and see what you can do with it.
Yeah, well, it's a good advice. What, Rams, what will you say? How we help students to get this into the schools when there are no teachers or principals bringing it in?
It's a tough one, really, because again, students are the ones who are playing all the games, right? So, they now have knowledge and stuff like that. Whereas teachers, it's very hard because most teachers probably don't play games as much as they do, or probably don't play the same sort of esports games we're trying. So the best thing I would say is, like, if we want to try and get is both the students and the teachers work together. And this is one of the best ways, really, because again, as you said earlier, it's the passion, as I believe Carlo was saying, it was the passion of the students, bring their passion in along with the teachers, and then the teachers will follow. And it's like a two-way relationship in a way, and it's that bonding sort of thing, I would say. And this sort of thing would work, magnificently if possible, if the teachers are willing to let the students sort of take over. Because this is what I do at uni, is that I've let the students take over and see their progression, and it's been amazing. And if students have a little bit of let's see, so initiative, give them the initiative to bring this in, and see the teachers, and let the teachers watch them, then that passion for both is it's massive, and it works together.
Yeah, 100%. Emily, you want to add something into this?
Yeah, so our esports teams are actually going to be disbanded in September 2019, despite only having been set up for a year. So what we did as the members of the first year teams, we actually went on a wild goose chase around college, trying to talk to all of the staff members that might be relevant in keeping esports going. So we went to the media technicians, the IT technicians, the head of computer science, the enrichment activity coordinator, and we basically just did whatever we could to set up the teams once again. So it was student run from September through to the beginning of January. No, the beginning of February. And basically, if you have the passion to bring it into school, then the students can do that, because the teachers are the biggest wall you'll probably face is safeguarding and GDPR. But teachers will be trained in that, so they can guide you and tell you what you can do, what you can't do, which games you can involve, because obviously there are age ratings and stuff like that. So even in college, despite the amount of people that wanted a CSGO team, we couldn't have it because it's rated 18, and not everyone in college was 18, so we couldn't promote it. But generally, if you can just get it started with, even if you're just sitting in an ICT suite at lunchtime with really bad computers, if you've got a low spec game that you can play, then that's enough to get it going, basically.
Good. Well, and it's really a good testimony how you went around the whole school and how patient and how pushy you have to be on in that way. I think you are raising a little bit some, like, there are concerns about esports in the school, and maybe the generation that is not so into the esports world is more reluctant to open the door in some ways. So let's go into the darkest side of gaming. And there are some like concerns about the gaming that could be like not, or maybe not allowing schools to promote esports. And like we can talk about dependence, or like getting into gaming and spending a life into that, and not being or social or in touch with others. And you mentioned a little bit about teens and that. What will you say to a school in order to create a safe environment for pro gaming? What are the concerns, or what a school has to focus on in order to promote esports, but in a safe environment?
It's hard. it's really hard. I think that the best thing to do, the first, is to make some rules about the number of hours the students can use gaming, and it's important anyway to make all to use this opportunity on the other side, because we have some social condition of some family context that could not bring the enough money to have these tools. And anyway, I, as a parent of a son, Jacopo, that is passionate about gaming, is 10 years old, I see how is hard to give him some rules about using, because he jumps from console, Xbox to PC to mobile. It's very, very hard. Anyway, we have to make understand that gaming could be a beautiful thing and not only a waste of time. To do this, we have to understand the socializing context, the benefit that we can take from this world. And in social context, we have to make the most important thing, one of the most important, is to use the fair play, to teach the fair play. That is the main important. I think about this consideration. As a teacher, there is a fear, not for me in general, about the fact that students could be more can use in a better way these tools, can be used in better ways, computers, games, and so on. So for a teacher, the fear is, how can I teach to this student that if they are greater than me in this context? The answer, I think, as a teacher is we are mentors, we are leaders, we have to drive students. We can't know all the knowledge, but we can give them some rules, the tools to use their brain. So this is my consideration.
Good. Of course, we need to start with rules, but I also like the component of rules plus tools and how to be mentors at the end. Stephanie, you want to add something here? How we create a safe environment in the school, or we don't allow for toxic behavior? That you can tell me more, but also you can tell me which are those toxic behaviors in the esports.
Yeah, there's so many reasons why I think we need to start esports in school. And one of them is to help with the toxic behavior that we have in gaming right now. School is supposed to prepare kids to be responsible citizens. It's one part of why our education systems are so important, not only to educate the kids to have a job, but to make them great citizens. And it's important for esports clubs and just in general teachers to get aware of what's going on online, because we need to set that foundation for the current and the future digital citizens that we have. Like, our gamers are digital citizens, but not only our gamers, everyone else will be and is currently a digital citizens, especially in the COVID situation when everyone has to work from home now. We're all becoming digital citizens. So we have to be taught online etiquette. We have to be taught responsibilities, and we have to be taught about toxicity and how to fight it. And one of the thing that I think is the most important, I call them the Harvey 3 C's, the Harvey for my last name. So we need to educate our kids, especially, but also our teachers, our parents, about the 3 C's. So cyberbullying, cyber dependence, and cyber security. Like, right now, it's the Wild West online. We have no rules. We have no practices, especially as parents. We don't know how to educate our kids to it. So our education system should be responsible, at least for a part of that. So we need to fight that toxicity at the source, which means when the kids are young and they're learning well, starting at like 5-6 years old and throughout their whole curriculum. And I think it has to become a norm everywhere in the world where, we need our future pro gamers, but also our future, just in general, citizens to be taught how to actually be online citizens and fight that toxicity from within.
Yeah, well, I really like your approach. Let me tell you, for us, we always say that education is many times seen as a problem, but for us, education is the solution. And I really like what you're saying, because in some ways, if we open the door for esports at the school, that will improve if we trust in the school and we trust what we are doing in terms of training or preparing the future citizenship. We are going to improve the gaming world as it's done. So I really like that approach. Rams, you want to say something and to jump in this?
I think it's practically been said by everybody else, to be fair. It's better to start off young, and again, what Steph said is like, the toxic behavior it always starts off young, and especially with gaming there is a lot of toxicity, and it's males, females, other genders out there, and it's starting to erupt a bit more now because of it. But if we can stem it at this level, the school level, then yeah, we're going to have a better future for most of these students. I would love to say it would be easy, but it's not. It never is, but it is slowly but surely. If we could tackle it one step at a time, then we'll get there. I mean, it will never be eradicated, unfortunately, but we have to start somewhere. And with esports, we can do that, and especially in the school system.
Yeah. Well, building from that, also esports bring the possibility to a more open, let's say in some way, gender opportunity. How do you see any particular trend? I know it's also dominated by men, but the market itself or the world of esports. But do you see any particular trend for girls and young women into esports?
Yeah, I mean, years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. I mean, Steph and a few others, there was very little girls and other genders within esports itself. But now it's open. And the thing you got to realize is that esports is not a physical sport. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a lot of the sports that you have, like football and basketball and all these other things. Yes, it's physical. It's determined by the gender. But esports is more. There's no physicality in it. It's more about your reflexes and your mentality. Again, it comes along with the, previously the toxicity and stuff like that. But if we could get rid of that, it is an open playing field for all genders. And Steph's going to add to it a bit more, but I believe, it's getting better and better slowly. We're getting a bit more proportion now of more girls coming into it, and I allow Steph to explain a bit more on it.
Yeah, I actually totally agree. And but there's one thing that we can't forget, just like in chess and in poker, they're very intellectual games, but we see very little women involved in these competitions. So although it's getting much better in the playing field, there's more and more girls playing the games, making the games and whatnot. There's still the very big disparities within competition. So I think that there's an approach that's just like, let the wave of women come in esports and make athletes out of it. But I think that we still need to introduce esports to young women as young as we can, and to support these women in their career, or else we're going to see what's going on with chess, like I said, in poker, which is very little women at the top, although it's open for all.
Yeah, good point. Building on that, what about disadvantaged students? What role does esports plays, and how can we promote teachers? Maybe Emily, you can share a little bit of what you see from your perspective on some students that are left behind. What can teachers do in order to help them get in esports, or to unlock their potential for this?
By disadvantage, do you mean as in if they don't have the equipment at home, kind of thing?
That's one disadvantage. There are many. We can talk about that, because there are. I'm sure that for this you need at least a computer, a mobile, a tablet, and there are many that don't have that. But you can also talk about those that in a classroom are left behind or are running behind the rest of the students, and maybe needs more support. If eSport is a possibility for them.
I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question, but gaming in general is quite expensive if you're trying to pursue it as, I don't know, a career or a passionate hobby kind of thing. I'm not too sure how to answer that question. If anyone else knows, sorry.
No, don't worry. You are making a good point. So it's expensive to get into this. So it's something that we need to consider. And if we want to get more engagement from schools, teachers, it's something to be aware of. Ram, what would you say from the university, and how will you approach this?
So we've at the University of Chichester, we've decked out the whole gaming lab area, so everybody's on the equal playing field. Most of the games in esports now are cross-play and cross-compatible as well. So, and can also use different doesn't need to be expensive systems. So, say, for instance, Rocket League, you could play anybody on any console, and it doesn't matter if you have to have an expensive PC, as long as you have one of the gaming consoles out there, you can still play against each other, and it's still on the same playing field. So it's no, and then with another example, TFT, Teamfight Tactics, that could be played on mobile. So you don't, and even though that game's on PC, you can play it on mobile and you can cross play. So there's different ways of playing, and advantages, disadvantages are starting to, depending on the game that you play, there are different ways to circumvent that. There are different ways to, to limit the disadvantages. But yeah, expenses is one. It's always going to be that way in anything in gaming. I don't know if the question of, I don't know when you said disadvantage, you were including maybe disability. I don't know if you were asking that as well. Were you asking that?
We can add that into, it wasn't the question, but we can add that. What would you say on that?
So for me, I think esports is a massive benefit, especially to sort of disability, because again, yeah, there are not a lot of disabled athletes. There are and there aren't, but there are some who don't want to do sports. And again, it's accessible. There are many accessible ways for disabled people. You know, there are great charities who do the gaming side of it, you know, and they help out. I mean, even the companies themselves, the gaming companies do accessible controllers. So it's mad, but there's a whole lot more accessibility in esports and computing than there is in probably physical sports, if for people don't want to go that way. Yeah, I think around that way.
I would say,
it's very clear, and it's what we said before. Carlo, you want to jump in?
Yeah, if I can add something about the problem that we don't left anybody behind. The equipments are very, very expensive to play in a way that is quite professional. So in this context, the school could help because school could make at disposition to use in their institutes these equipments for all the students and to bring them in some situation like organizing teams, as we said before, but only in some specific situation, not in general for all days. To organize tournament, to make socialization more useful. To, as I said, but for disability, I don't think there is a problem, because people with disability can use, I think, in general, in the same way. In the opposite way, this could be an help for them, I think. Another thing about the gender problem, I saw with a little surprise that in Italy we have done a study about that female in Italy now are 40% players so I was surprised, because normally I think about female not so linked with gaming.
Yeah, well, that's good to know, and it's we're also, I think, building this huge or important defense or promotion of esports, that it's having more girls into esports in the past years. I read similar numbers on other studies, and as well that it's not a problem for disadvantaged students, but there is also an opportunity there to consider. Talking about that, I think clubs here play an important role, and we need some teachers promoting. We talk about students, we need some teachers promoting clubs for esports, but maybe teachers that are not involved in esports. So tell me, I hope the answer is yes, but how teachers can run clubs for esports to promote this across their students?
As a teacher, I can try to do this, but it's hard, I think, in general, because sports are now considered very, very different from the normal teaching. So I think we can do something of important with this talking. It's a great opportunity, I think, to bring something new about this context. I think we have to change very we have to change the world in this context. For example, for female problem, as I said, that's a problem in general for female because they are not for a way to see society. They are too long from to use to study tech, for example, STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and math, is is not of appeal for female, but not because they don't are able to, of course, absolutely not, but for a vision in the in society. So the female often learn about a context that is not math, not computer science, and so our effort should be to involve them as much as we can.
Again, and thank you, Carlo. It's a possibility to involve many others. Emily, you want to jump in here?
Hi. So going back to I've forgotten what I was going to say again. Going back to the question, I was going to...
How teachers can run a club, or how teachers can...
That was it. Brilliant. Thank you. So what we did was we kind of had a student rep kind of for each game and for each team. So even though the teacher might not know what's going on with the game and how to run it, what teams are the best to put together, you can always ask the students, because obviously they're the ones participating, they're the ones that know the most about the game, so they can effectively help you along and help you make the teams, basically, and things like that. So
good. And I have organized. Emily, you were... Sorry, Rams.
Sorry, I wanted to add to that one as well. Sorry, my apologies. But going back on what Emily just said, it's, again, and I say this, the teachers don't necessarily need to know about the games itself. The students already sort of know the games. It's just the teachers need to keep just keep everything in control. But the three biggest things that I find out is that when you give the students these sort of, a little bit of the role, you give them three things. You give them one, which is leadership. You give them two, which is empowerment, and you give them three, which is responsibility. And all this can be learned in doing so, when making a club, when doing this, so that's the three biggest things. And that's what a teacher could do is, teacher does need to know about the games itself. They can learn the basics, but other than that, go with a bit of common sense, in terms of the teaching and how to guide the students. Yeah. And that way, it's about those three things that I've just said that will help out the student.
Yeah. Well, I hope after the conversation we will have more teachers getting into. I would like, Emily, before we get into the industry behind the esports, I would like Emily, I know this is organized by leagues, so you play in different leagues, and you were part of the British eSport Championship. How does it work? How do you get into a league, and with whom are you playing there? How?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the British eSports Championships were organised by, obviously, the British eSports Association. They have a sign-up registration for the winter split, which is from, I think, October to December, and then the spring split, which is from the end of January through to March, I think. And basically, you just need to register your school, a staff member, and how many teams you're going to be entering. So at the moment, they only do Rocket League, Overwatch, and League of Legends. And the winners of each split will be given the opportunity to play at Insomnia. Well, obviously, this time it would have been Insomnia 66, but due to the pandemic, it wasn't able to happen. So all you need to do is register with them. They'll send you a Discord link, and that's where all of the teachers and organizers will gather in the same server, and then you can organize your matches from there and keep in contact with admins and so on. And yeah, you play against other colleges and other schools from across the country, other people that have signed up. I think there are about 54 teams in Overwatch across the last year. So that's quite a big jump from how it was last year. It's definitely increasingly popular. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to remark this, that you are always playing versus other human people, and that is making a real competition, and it's something that is really good and important in education. You are not playing versus a machine. That is maybe what it's thought about this in general. I would like to go to Stephanie and Rams. You were both very successful in esports as players, but we all know that this is a bigger market than just a place for players. And schools in some way are preparing students for the future and for the future of work that we don't know how it's going to be. For sure, the esports has a lot of opportunities for students. What are those wider roles around esports, not only players, that could be interesting for young people that is today at school and could get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the esports ecosystem, you have to realize that it's incredibly big. Most people think it's just pro gamers, and that's pretty much it. But right now, think about your favorite sports and everything that it means. So let's take, for example, European football. You have the teams, you have the sponsorship, you have the TV channels broadcasting the games, you have all the different academy and amateur scene, the journalists, the coaches, everything that's around it, how big that infrastructure is. Well, it's the same in esports right now. And the greatest thing about it is that there's no boundaries, there's no frontiers. It can all be done online, or a lot of it can be done online. So I feel really fortunate, because right now I think that I can pretty much do any job I want in esports. And that's the future of a lot of the kids that maybe they want to be accountant. Hey, why not be an accountant on an esports org? Or maybe you want to work in marketing, or you want to be a coach, or anything that you can do. I like to say like the regular world, although for me esports is my norm. Anything that you can do it in gaming. Even making the game and making sure that these games are esports ready is a possibility too. So it's missing people. It's looking for people to be to have some expertise to join the ranks. And you see it across like anything you can think of. If they have a sports department, they probably have an esports department too now.
Yeah. And it's a world of opportunities. Ram, what would you say from your experience? And I will get back to Stephanie with one question about coaches. But
yeah, it's what Steph exactly said. There's a whole plethora of jobs nowadays in esports. Back years ago when myself and Steph were playing, we never had sports psychologists. We never had physiotherapists, but nowadays these franchise teams out there are hiring them, even chefs, nutritionists, there's different jobs these days that people could go for. And, even if players now, students might not be the best, at a certain game, they can go into different roles, coaches, management, analysts, public speaking, casting, there's a whole ton of ways, and you don't just have to play games. Like you say, when you say to some people, I do esports, it's just playing games, isn't it? Hell no. There is a lot more opportunities than there is. And again, it's a lot more accessible as well. You name it out there. There are teams, there are companies, broadcasters, even YouTube as well, looking for those sort of people. It's so big, and esports has opened us up a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rams. Let's go back to Steph. We from the Varkey Foundation, we are here to support teachers and to celebrate teachers. And in some way, a teacher is someone that is looking to unlock the potential of a student and to promote, to motivate, as Carlo was saying, to share that passion and to make the best of them. Or you also talk about the importance of the training or preparing future citizenship. I imagine a few things in common between a teacher and a coach in esports. So let's learn from your experience. What would you look if you are looking for a great coach in esports?
Yeah, it's not because you've been a good player that you're necessarily a good coach. We know that from sports, and one of the most important thing I think right now in esports is a lot of these coaches are self-made. They don't have the right education that goes with being a coach. They also don't necessarily have the right mindset to be a coach. So all these coaches right now are kind of left and right learning from experience. But what I usually like about a coach is someone that is act more like a leader, like a sage, and not necessarily like the best in the game, but can rally everyone to be on the same page, and can learn and want to learn on how to make his players or her players the best they can be in game and outside the game. And I think that right now we have a lot of analysts in esports, which are people that are really good at knowing on strategy and tactical choices what needs to be done in the games. But we don't have that many coaches yet because that's still a very unknown area for esports.
Yeah, well, thank you. Let's go in that direction, talking about experience. Emily, what would you say about a good coach? You don't have to give names. Just share the good skills that we were looking for.
Just someone who understands the game, really. The theory behind all the personally, I play Overwatch, so a good coach would be someone who understands what the best positions are, how much damage each character does, and the best counters to each character, and someone who just really knows the game. They don't necessarily have to be good at the game, but if they understand the game, then they'll be a successful coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's a good. When we talk about teachers, we talk about competence, and to be competent in your subject is quite important. It's not only how you tell things, but you need to know that. So there is a good parallel to a good line to put together. Carlo, what would you say about a good coach in esports?
I think a teacher should unlock the talents of the students. We have to drive them. We have to passionate them. I think in this, as said, sports can give different profession. We have different people that can make different jobs. In my specific context, I think that one important thing is teaching programming languages to create the video games, to create the arenas, to create platform. If we make visible to students the enjoying of using video games, it's a way to make them learn to create, not only to use, but to create, develop, because programming, developing is a form of art. We can create something that before we create, we do that isn't present. So this is, we have to unlock, as said, a student's talent.
Great, Carlo. Thank you very much. It's amazing to have your point of view from as a teacher, Steph and Rams, both developers on the university side, but both with experience of being players, and Emily, that it's in the other side of the classroom today as well. I think for the conversation we are having, it's critical that we get more of this and we increase the awareness of esports into the education system as a whole, because there is a huge potential. What will be your, not wrapping up yet, but what will be your big lesson or your one advice to a school in order to promote clubs in a healthy way in order to increase eSport participation today? If you have to pitch the school principal of a school, what will you say?
I think for me, it's start the conversation and just don't be closed-minded. Don't be focused on what gaming is bringing that you think is negative, but get informed, because most of those are just myths. Get informed, talk to students, talk to parents, and it's better to do it in a healthy way, in a safe environment, an environment that is controlled in school, where you have educators that can teach the kids how to do it right, that can involve the parents, that can involve the curriculum at school, and to just start the discussion. I'm not saying tomorrow get an esports club and drop everything you've been doing, but I am saying you should open up to the possibility that it's going to be everywhere anyway. Gaming is here to stay. The internet is here to stay. So might as well embrace it and do the best that you can with it, because there's so many great things about gaming and about the internet that should stay in our lives and that are changing lives across the world. So instead of being super negative about it, let's all work on it together to become better digital citizens.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And you, as you say, you don't have to open a club tomorrow, but if you want to, you can.
Yeah.
Who else would like to give us the pitch advice? Rams, what would you say?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much Steph said it all, really. I'd say as well, one step at a time. Don't plan it out, experiment a bit, see and have that conversation between teachers and students. See what games are out there, see what students are playing right now, and then build from that. But slowly but surely, don't. Esports is going to be around. Oh, it's going to be around forever at this rate, and it's not gonna. You don't need to sprint towards the sort of destination. Take one step at a time. Learn from what others are doing. Talk to others, other schools that are maybe doing it as well. And just research. That's the biggest thing, is sort of researching and again and see how it goes with each school.
Yeah, I thank you very much, Rams. I take notes of all different comments that you are making, and I like this of talk with other schools, connect with others, learn from others. I think if esports is a possibility for schools to connect, it's something that we need. For sure, in the education system, we need more connection across different schools. So here we bring a new opportunity. Emily?
Hi. So yeah, I would agree with everything that they just said. It's also important to remember that education, while academics are important, extracurricular activities are just as important. They should coexist rather than compromise each other. And so the feedback that the students give and the passion of the students, it should be taken into account, and that schools shouldn't just be for learning, and that they should also provide for their interests, their hobbies, and it shouldn't discourage them from pursuing anything that they want to.
Yeah, well, that's important. And how to promote that you want to pursue, how we can be best at promoting that. I like that, and we pass it was a good advice for teachers, so we go to Carlo for the last pitch on how to promote it.
Oh, I think that everything can be done, and we have to change the vision that video games are a danger for our students, for our pupils, for our sons and daughters. So change the vision as we can educate our students, our sons to do the thing in the right way. In general, we can put some limitation And as a leader, as a mentor, we can educate them to use in the right way the game and this fantastic new world for school too.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Carlo. We are almost having a conversation for 1 hour. It's amazing what you have shared. I'm really thankful to all of you. I would like to give you a round of applause, but in a virtual environment it's different. So we say like, congratulations and thank you very much for your time, for what you are doing and for sharing this, for having a conversation such from different backgrounds. I would like to thank especially the British eSports Association because they help us to promote this further and they gave us the information. They connect you with us as well. So thank you for them. I want to personally thank Jacqueline and Nikita from our team who pushed me into this, and I'm now learning much more from this topic, and we want to keep the conversation going. So please, everyone who is listening to us, connect with what we're doing, subscribe to the channel, comment here, because there is a lot more that we can do in order to promote and to take esports into schools. So looking forward to more conversations, and thank you again for this great panel that we had today with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.